for these guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us here. Great to see such a turnout for this. So here we are at Collision 2023. So innovation is on the minds in boardrooms and classrooms and newsrooms. It goes without saying that the world's changing every day. We're seeing generational shifts in how we harness technology to live, work, and play. Fortune 500 CEOs are asking big questions about how do we stay competitive and how do we compete. They're not all getting these decisions right, but one company that is seeing success in its digital transformation is McGraw Hill, a 130-year-old publisher. Justin, your team worked with Raphael's team at A.Team. You guys built Sharpen, what's being referred to as the TikTok for studying. It's a viral sensation on hundreds of college campuses, thousands of people using it. What is the genesis story of Sharpen? What is this, and where did this journey start?
Yeah, so Sharpen is a brand new way of studying for students to give them continuous feeds, just like social media, so they become more and more accomplished as they're undertaking their study. And the genesis behind it was at McGraw Hill with this fantastic legacy for over 130 years. We're one of the most trusted brands in education. But as we were talking to students over the last 2 years in particular, we realized that students had fundamentally changed their study habits. When they were going into higher education, they'd open their lecture notes. 3 in 5 of them were telling us that they feel disengaged. Over 92% were telling us they're feeling physically exhausted and overwhelmed. And there was no wonder that students were looking for alternate forms of studying. And so we noticed as well, Will, that students were coming up with their own solves. And what were they doing? They were going to social media, spending hours going to social media, looking for information that they consume that resonates with them. Now, the only issue with that, of course, is you can go to social media and spend hours, not find anything that's learning related, and it might be actually incorrect and not help you learn. And so there's inherent brilliance in the way students and learners are studying, and we realized that we need to create a brand new category to reach these students in a completely different way. So we said, okay, what if we could tap into that 130-year-old treasure trove of content that we have and really deliver that content the way that students are demanding it? And that's how we grew Sharpen, and we've launched it at the end of last year. We've had over hundreds of thousands of students organically use the app and over 1 million activities completed in Sharpen.
That's fantastic, and congratulations on that success. Obviously, you're a 130-year-old brand. You've been in business for a long time, and you're obviously a successful business, and that's why you've been in business so long.
Right.
Businesses that have that heritage don't change that quickly, but it seems like you guys managed to.
Yes.
So when you were building Sharpen, what was 0 to 1?
Yes.
What did that look like, and how did you bring in Raphael and his team at A.Team to make that happen?
Absolutely. So we constantly look to innovate to respond to the needs of our teachers and students. At the same time, we have made a lot of mistakes, and we learned along the way. And traditionally, we pursued 2 different models that I think if you're in a corporate, you're very used to. The first model was we're going to get a tiger team together from different parts of the organization. And these people, really great intentions, would spend 10% of their time working on innovation. Now, the only issue with that is that if you're in a corporate like me, you probably have 15 other things in your mind, let alone your core job of what you're working on. And what we realized is that typically there was a big cost in terms of time and distraction, and a lot of the outputs tended to be very similar to what we had today. And then the next thing we did, we said, okay, well, we now need to try something new. So then we tried bringing in, third parties and restrict the number of people involved. The only issue with that was when we started doing that was the people in the organization would be like, hey, this is a third party doing the work, and you start to lose the accountability. And the third party that would typically come in wasn't leveraging what makes our company great, or a company that you work in great. And so we weren't getting the results that we wanted. And so we realized we had to think about this completely different. we had to think about what are the core competencies that make your business great. In our case, McGraw Hill, we said we're really great at creating high-quality learning content. We're really great at creating digital experiences rooted in pedagogy, but we need to augment our capabilities. We need to augment it in terms of social media experts and experts from the health and wellness industry. And that's when we reached out to A.Teams and Raphael and said, we've got to bring a small team together. We're going to tell them, don't do a business case. All I want you to do is work with different competencies and say, make a mock-up that delights the student, that the student really likes. And if you can do that, everything else would sort itself out. And that's how we rethought about innovation around Sharpen.
Raphael, how do you plug into a big corporate client when you start a project with them?
Yeah, the context for this, I think, is a lot of people have been talking about technology and innovation for a very long time. But the truth is that great technology typically belongs to only very, very few tech giants and startups. And it turns out that some of the best product builders out there, I'm talking about the product managers, the designers, the engineers, the data scientists, the AI engineers, actually want to work on very meaningful application of technology that are not necessarily with tech giants and with smaller startups. So we've built this network of now 9,000 of some of the most highly skilled product builders. So think about the people who can build incredible software, hardware, technology, design, that can architect, and also the leaders that can lead and manage those teams. We've built a technology to assemble the most highly skilled kind of small teams, massive impact type of teams that can plug in and work with a change maker like Justin, with companies that are not digitally native at all. And to be able to carry out this vision by first deconstructing it and applying into what would the first, cheapest, fastest iteration look like so that you can actually experiment. Like Justin said, the way we approach with companies, and today we're working with one of the largest retailers on the planet, largest healthcare systems in the planet, and companies virtually across industries, with consumer products, generative AI capabilities, and so forth. And it's not about, hey, let's scope it all out and build this big contract. Actually, it's about starting as small as possible and iterate alongside the innovation and the thinking and the market in a way that is very customer-centric. So working with Justin, just like we work with change makers at different companies, is really about that. Focusing on the customer and the outcome, composing and devising the smallest team with the right skill set to actually take it to the next level and experiment, and then grow from that in tandem with the organization to make this a complete alternative to the kind of old and heavy digital transformation that I got a lot of companies stuck to work very much like a startup.
Yeah.
Go for it.
No, I completely agree with that. I mean, when you're trying to create a new category or trying to go into a new market, it's inherently extremely risky, and you can lose a lot of money in that process, and I'm sure you all have examples of that. So your point around trying to keep it small, reduce the cost to do innovation is absolutely key, because you'd rather know if your end customer doesn't like it as soon as possible, so you can kill it straight away, or you have that, or build up that conviction so you can keep the team pumping and keep going into the future.
Mm-hmm. So if we look at McGraw Hill, you're a publishing company. By nature, publishers, I feel like they're conservative. I can say that. I work in media. How did you get the buy-in from current internal employees to work with an organization like A.Team? What does that process look like with getting buy-in? Because I think that's what a lot of companies grapple with.
I think the first start is, it sounds obvious, but creating a process where you're making it very clear that the first thing you're going to do is just talk to the customer in a completely different way with a team that's focused in their core competency around that. In terms of buy-in, what was really powerful for us was the voice of the customer reacting to our mock-ups and then taking it to the boardroom, taking it to the rest of your executives and say, like, look, this may feel a little bit uncomfortable, but our core mission is helping students reach their learning outcomes. And students are telling this back. So it's our responsibility to drive on this innovation. That's our responsibility as a company, and it sort of sells itself. actually keep building more and more momentum. And that's absolutely key. So show the demo in the boardroom, show the students' responses or your customers' responses in the boardroom, rather than that typical pitch deck of slides, and let them do the talking. And that was a real big change of how we had done it in the past.
Yeah, if I may add to this, so we started working early on into the journey of the company. You know, back then we were not working with, like we do now, with hundreds of startups and dozens of Fortune 500. So it was definitely a more risky bet, and it's really credit to you for being such a visionary. But we've been truly inspired by the playbook building of how to get buy-in with a non-digitally native company to think about building a mobile-first, social, new realm, new category of engagement with your end users. And I think what we're learning, we've now structured ourselves much better to accommodate that in a more systematic way, from having architects, from having CXOs from very large companies that are now part of the network to help carry this out. But I think a really drastic innovation in the process that you've led was not to talk about APIs, data structures, and all the technical stuff that we typically talk about with digital transformation. I think a lot of companies actually feel bad that they don't have the tech stack and all the tech conversations that they wish they had. And so they focus on that and hire all kinds of companies to help them do those digital transformation stuff. And here was like you said, focus on the customer, create prototypes, experiment, and show how it's actually very small, but it will grow as you validate along the way.
Right.
And everyone in an organization can resonate with a product that you can see, touch, and feel, whether it's an internal capability or an external capability alike. So just make it tangible, start small, iterate, experiment. We see that more and more now as we're engaged with many companies working with generative AI, where even the people that are creating some of these core technologies, and we have the chance to work with many startups for years now that have been coming up with some of those innovation in the models, don't actually know the right use cases and where the money will be on that and where the efficiencies. So there again, it's about experimentation and having a cross-functional approach where you don't just have developers or you don't just have designers or business analysts, but you have all of those and more coming together around the vision of the customer and the value that the company is trying to drive.
Yeah, I would just expand on that. Like, in my role of leading transformation overall in the company, there is a space for that large-scale transformation, and that is a big part of my job, going through the core systems of the company, the core go-to-market, product ways of working, content ways of working, as we call it in our company. And so that's a real big focus, and that has an absolute place in any corporation. When you're trying to do innovation, it's all about minimizing distraction at the same time, right? And minimizing costs and knowing where you're going really fast. And to your point, you want to sort of hive that off, but at the same time, make sure that, look, you're not a startup. You have these amazing capabilities in your company that you're always leveraging and you're proactively leveraging. And you should unashamedly do that. And that's why our team is also fundamentally McGraw Hill people in that team that are driving that, which ultimately has led to the success of Sharpen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one of the learnings for us also early on is that when we started the company, we started building out this very curated network of very, very distinguished builders, people coming from developers, for example, coming from the Google and Facebook of the world, and that wanted to work on meaningful missions. But we're working mostly with tech companies. When we started working with non-tech companies, we realized something that surprised us. Actually, some of the best builders out there want to work with the companies that typically don't work with them. They actually are super like if you care about education, you'll be hard-pressed to have an opportunity such as working with Justin and team to build Sharpen, right? There are a lot of startups doing really cool stuff, but this scale of impact is category defining and potentially a turning point in education. And similarly, take like the industries that are very entrenched in our daily life, healthcare, financial services, etc., that are ripe for disruption in so many areas. Well, it turns out the best builders out there want to team up and work with you on those problems, and there are some of the most exciting things that one can do.
Mm-hmm. Justin, how have you guys changed forever since working with A.Team? And Raphael, how do you set up your clients for success in a world where you're no longer there? What constraints, what processes, what foundational things do you put in a company so that you're not there forever working with them?
Yeah, I would say we have changed Forever's a big word.
130 more years.
Forever. But it's allowed us to take a lot more risk. We have not just, since we've done Sharpen, we have greenlit a lot more projects since then. It's allowed us to build more and more muscle across our organization. And it's allowed us to continue to be proud as an organization and to take a lot more risk because we found a way to just reduce costs, go faster, and be more closer to the customer. So I think that has absolutely changed our risk tolerance as an overall company. And I think it also has allowed us to redefine our relationship with our end user. You know, it's been 6 months and we have hundreds of thousands of students that have chosen to download Sharpen. Students choosing to use Sharpen and learn on Sharpen, not because their teachers have told them to do it, not because their parents have told them to do it, it's because they want a new way of learning. That's actually responding to the way they want to learn. And that will forever change the way McGraw Hill is perceived and our relationship with that end customer.
Yeah, so the way we set people for success is, well, first, we can only work with a company if there is a change maker there. Someone who is willing to take on that playbook work of working with a leadership team, even if it's, you know, we've built the capabilities to now help and talk to leadership teams and help set that up.
But everyone needs a Justin.
Yeah, every company needs a Justin. That's basically the starting point. But I think a lot of companies do. And sometimes I think it feels a little bit lonely, and we realize that. So the first step is to kind of plug you in with the community of people who have done it, who have learned best practices, but then it's about what we've learned. The first step is to help set up the strategy, taking a business vision into a product plan, into a product strategy, into a set of experiments, into the composition of a team, and then going to execution. And to have this circle that keeps on moving between refining the strategy to the next small delivery that will be the most impactful. To build that engine of change with companies where we can combine both the strategy piece, the advisory piece, the what it should look like, how you should even be thinking about this, to the execution, is where you see the real value being realized and taking some of the incredible ideas and opportunities that I think every company sees because they're at the edge of their market and they see exactly what's going on, into something that will materially change, just as you've described, the trajectory of the company and their ability to provide a superior experience with customers, with stakeholders, with internal stakeholders, in ways that you could never expect from 99% of companies. Now they can just do it.
Great. We have 10 seconds left. Justin, what do you say to all the Justins in the audience? What's the one takeaway that you want them to leave here with?
I'll just say, if you're leading innovation, it's worth it. It's bumpy, but know that if you're doing innovation, it's naturally going to be something that's different. And so just embrace it. Look for different partners. Look for different vendors. And don't forget what makes you great as a company to start with.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks a lot, guys.